welcome to Synchronicity. My guest this week is Alexis Readinger. She runs Preen Inc., which is this amazing firm that creates magical, sacred, cool spaces all over California. She's doing cool shit. You will hear in this episode what she's about. There were birds there. Birds. If you've seen the GIF, do you guys know I put GIFs up for every episode on the syncpodcast.com? I chose a bird GIF for her because there was two fucking cool ass birds doing their thing. What was it Charlie and Lola? Is that right? I think if I remember correctly, those are the names. They were lovely. She was lovely. Big thanks to Jill Shock, who, when I go back there, we'll do a podcast with her again. The Death Doula, LA. She's the best. She introduced me to Alexis, and I'm so glad she did, because what a great conversation you're about to hear today. You're going to love her. She's cool. We talk psychedelics, we talk spaces, we talk trauma, we talk dreams, we talk time travel. Lots of fun stuff in here. So stay tuned for that. Ooh, should I mention my friends Ned? Guys, these dudes are fucking supporting cool shit. You know them on other podcasts. You know them from this podcast. CBD, cannabis, hemp. Listen, I've been saying, maybe I can't do this, you think. I make sure that the stuff you get from Ned, go to helloned.com, use the code SYNC, SYNC, you get magical blessed CBD. This will go into your body, express itself in the most perfect, positive, harmonious way, and basically just make your life incredible. And you can say, no, that's bullshit. You can't do that. You don't have those powers. This is just CBD. Maybe I'll get some health benefits from that, but you can't magically imbue it with shit. Oh yeah, fucking do it. Also, you get 15% off if you use that code. So, there's really no reason not to use it. If you're interested in CBD, if you've been thinking about it, I use it. I got it. I have one in where I'm living and the car, right? I need that much CBD. So that's what's going on. Please, helloned.com. Support these people. They're good fucking dudes doing good fucking shit, and I'm sure they want me saying exactly like that in the ads. That's what's going on. Another note about readings. I'm going to LA November 26th. I'll be there for a couple of weeks. I am going to be closing my online readings during this time period. I will be doing special in-person Los Angeles readings for people who are there. Stay tuned. The details will go up on syncpodcast.com/readings, and there will be all the details. I'm going to open up the digital books again, but basically what's been happening is you guys have been pouring in. It's been fucking incredible. I've honestly, it just feels so good. It feels good to know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You guys are getting stuff out of it. It's wonderful, but I need to make sure that my space and time is in check with all of this stuff. So I'm going to be just closing the books, figuring it out with Jake, my assistant. He's had some great ideas, and I think it's going to be helpful for me managing my time because I do a lot of stuff, if you can imagine. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'll leave them up through the weekend until I go to LA, but I'm going to close them for the week that I'm there. So they'll be, or the 2 weeks I'm there. So it'll be up and ready and cool for everyone. So that's going on. Is there anything else I need to mention? Let's hang out in LA. Let's find a fucking cool thing to do. If you're there, let's get up. I got a house. Oh, I'm staying at this healing house. I'm going to have more details for it while I'm out there, but it's this Airbnb. This dude, Riley, I'm super stoked. Like, I joined Airbnb, and like most people don't want you to like stay at their place if you have no reviews. You just seem like a shady person. I'm like, dude, you can Google me. And then Airbnb blocks on the message the word Google. So it's like, dude, it rhymes with Dougal me. And then he did. And he's like, oh, we're on the same vibe. He's like, I got this really fucking cool house and like sound healing. And I'm like, all right, perfect. Way to be, life in general. So yeah, cool stuff will be going on out there. If you want a quickie reading when I travel to pass the time, and because it's fun, I guess we'll just do like $13 to $20 readings on Instagram. They're just like a 3-paragraph thing I'll do for you. So you could stay tuned for that. It's a different price point. I'm trying to make sure I accommodate everyone. I don't want to just be some like fancy. I am a fancy ass tarot and astrology reader at this point, and I do charge a lot of money, but I want to make sure that if you want a reading, there's a way to get that done too. So Instagram would be the place to follow me for those impromptu things when I'm in transit. What else? I think that's it. Just have a good time. Remember that everything is fun. We have some really cool episodes coming up, some very cool guests, some solo episodes I've been moving around in my mind. Just cool stuff. Oh, do you remember how I said I wanted Neville Goddard's birth time? Someone found it for me. But like they were like, it just popped up. I thought I'd share it with you on Instagram. And I was like, oh my God, fuck yeah, this is the best. So I have his full birth chart. I think we'll do an episode where we do that. I just want to remind people, whether it's Neville Goddard or anyone, any mystic, don't get too caught up in the person. It's fun to like, whoa, that was cool. But it's you. It's you. It's always you. So it's fun to connect with people and share and make music and all this fun stuff. But it's you. It's always you. Don't forget that. So we'll do an episode of that. And then we'll have one of those reading episodes. There's just fun shit going on, guys. It's really fun. That's it. Let's get to this episode. Man, Alexis, she was badass. Go check her out. Preen. If you need any like architectural or spaces designed, I can tell you confidently she is the person for that. So without further ado, here is Alexis Readinger. Is it a girl?
Yeah.
Can she talk into the mic?
Would you say apple? She's like, no, I'm terrified of that. She's trying to get away from it.
How many words does she know, do you think?
But she's funny. Like, it'll just be a full sentence out of nowhere.
Like, what are some examples of like a sentence theoretically?
Like, one day she's like, I like that bird. I'm a bird.
Oh shit.
Right?
That's
good girl.
Crazy. How long have you had birds? Like, how long have you been connected?
I had them when I was little.
Parrots?
Yeah. Well, no, parakeets.
Parakeets.
And then started getting lovebirds when I was in architecture school.
What are lovebirds?
They're real pretty. They're all like super colorful. We had a lot of unfortunate, untimely deaths.
Oh, how? How did
I'm not even going there.
Oh.
And I always wanted a gray, and Charlie was a present from my old boss.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Lola?
And Lola, I let Charlie pick Lola out.
How?
Took her to the bird shop, and that's who she wanted to hang out with.
Wow.
But they were babies, so they were both only a year old. And
what do they look like when they're babies? Are they just
kind of the same, but their eyes
smaller?
Are different. Their eyes are black.
The eyes are incredible, like truly incredible. That's the first thing I noticed.
She says, "Thank you."
I mean, amazing. That's cool. So recently, the reason I asked this is because I've been you just stand right at me for a second. I've been jumping into various like energies of animals just because it's like we have characteristics associated with them. There is clearly attributes like the same way we would use like deities or gods, but the animals have them as well. And since I've been doing that, I've encountered a lot more. You like intuitively knew right before. You're like, ooh.
I felt her body change. Yeah.
It's awesome. I've just been experiencing and encountering a lot more animals just like out. So that's why I'm asking all these questions about the birds, because they're all symbolic of something too. They're a part of us, right? And they express something out. And I think it's really cool that you have two that you live with and work with. That's fucking cool.
Right.
All right, Alexis, we're in your workplace. Preen, Jill, who's sitting over there doing her own thing while we're talking, introduced me to you. And it was under the auspices of magical places, because I was working on a project. I'm working on a project about magical places. And she's like, oh, I know exactly who you should speak to. So I'm curious who you are. How did you get connected with magical places? I know architecture and stuff like that, but like what drew you to do what you're doing right now?
Wow. What created the conversation? Because it almost feels just like a return to being a kid, and just allowing that conversation to be back again. And I don't even know. like there, it's been like an I'd say there's been a process and an evolving that's happened. And my business is turning 15 at the end of the year.
Quinceañera for
Right.
Charlie
For
too.
Breen and Charlie. I think one of the things that I was never able to do with the business was actually explain what my intention was or what was different about
Right.
us or what
Right.
we were doing. And I really think that we've had a slower growth because it's taken me being able to step into that conversation for the business to actually flourish. And I got into a bar project in my neighborhood a few years ago, and it was my first independent development project.
On your own.
Yeah.
Like in charge of. Like,
like bought it.
Yeah. Wow.
Like raised money.
Wow.
And I picked really unfortunate partners.
Oh, I know that dynamic. I've experienced that dynamic before, huh?
Yeah. And
it'll teach you.
Oh, yeah. I got my cherry popped.
Yeah. There's always a first time.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was pretty awful. And it took me a couple years of them sort of drawing this thing out. And eventually I was able to get all my investors out intact, which was my intention.
Right. Not fuck over the people who you had brought in because of shady fucks. Like totally.
And when that happened, I was like, this is just not who I am. And there's got to be other people in the world who care. And so I started just Googling.
Yeah.
Like different communities and
what
groups.
What were you Googling?
Trying to look for like who in business really, cares about the world and the people around them. And I had a very intentional community socially for some time.
But professionally, it wasn't syncing up to that point?
Exactly. Right. I didn't have that at all professionally.
Right. Yeah.
And so then actually Channing, you met this morning, who came through. I met her through this inquiry, through a developer friend of mine. I found Summit. I found, I in some of the communities I like tried on, but just didn't stick.
Totally. Yeah.
Like I went on a nature hike with the young impact investors and like I don't know.
It's like surreal. Like I just from the objective like witness observer principle, that's a pretty fun experience, I'm sure. Even if it doesn't like mesh, you're like, this isn't for me. It's just like, what? This is something that people do that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
I get it.
And there's all these groups out there.
Infinite. There's more and more
amazing.
every day, and they all get totally different interests and ways of approaching the world. Yeah. So you're trying on different.
And then, I had also done Landmark back in 2004.
Done
right?
what?
Landmark.
What's Landmark?
The Landmark Forum. It's remember like EST in the 60s?
No.
Consciousness seminar. It's just arbitrary set of distinctions that are created and, by which you can look at what you're doing to, advance or stop yourself and whatever.
Totally. Like get above the consciousness, like the unconditioned awareness of.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it.
Exactly. Why did I bring that up?
Well, you're mentioning S.
Oh, languaging. Yeah. So it was, I ended up working with a brand identity team on a project I did up on Sunset. And the way that they were speaking, I was like, did you do Landmark? Because I could just hear some of the terminology, the way of speaking. And so they introduced me to my coach that I'm working with now. So between working with my coach and my empath.
Yeah, that'll do it. Oh, that'll do it. The conscious and subconscious minds working in tandem, that'll do it.
Yeah. It's my mission statement for the company very much came out of a reading. Yeah.
Because it's my take on readings now that I do them for people is the cards, the charts, the energy is always you, the querent. And so it's a way we present what we actually want and want to experience through another person, through a reading, through a coach, through whatever. And it allows us to accept it kind of in an easier way if we just kind of like think of it quick and we're like, are we sure? Like like you can't, the cards don't lie. The astrology chart doesn't lie. The coach is giving you good stuff. So I found that to be like a very valuable way of kind of like getting below the threshold of like our conscious minds, like through other people and stuff. Yeah.
And then to the place where I'm like, it's also, it's not about, what I'm interested in creating on some levels is not about me at all.
Of course.
It's just, being the conduit.
For sure. But in some ways it definitely is too. Don't forget about that. That's something I used to do that more than I think was healthy. I think there is a level of awareness, like in unity consciousness, when you jump up kind of that unconditioned awareness, you recognize even the concept of you is probably an abstraction, right? You still maintain the sense of identity, but here you want to be more aware of kind of, honoring both helping others, but first making sure that you don't diminish yourself.
Like the airplane.
Yeah, exactly. Oxygen masks first, and then really making sure though, like, cause like as much as a conduit is just a vessel, and I think that's what I live from that space a lot, especially when I'm doing like intuitive stuff. However, I found that if that morphs into me diminishing who I am individuated, that doesn't work either. You know what I mean? Like I like also, yeah, I am also awesome. And I also am able to be a vessel because I'm fucking badass. Like you. So, you know what I mean? Like that's important too. I've just found that out probably the most in my life for the past 3 or 4 months. And it's like, yeah, shit is good to do that.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's an interesting balance in being a creator, you know? You're like, I am the creation, but also I'm not.
You're both, right?
Yeah.
I like the Rastafarianism thing, the I and I, right? The big I, everything, you're that, but you're also the little I, you, right? Alexis, Jill, Noah. Like those two coexist at the same time, and they allow us to basically not freak out when living from both those places at the same time. That's been my experience, at least. Okay, so I started connecting with the right people. We're sensing this merging of your world. So how did it begin to show up in your professional life, this merging of like what you've been talking about with friends and stuff?
It's still, I mean, definitely the level of integrity shifted in my clients. But I still have some that like to be pretty squirrely. I feel like lately I'm just like, I'm holding the space for everyone's integrity and like creating that for all the different teams I'm involved with.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's definitely, it's a maturation.
Yeah.
And it also just showed up in being able to say like genuinely, what are we doing when we're creating these spaces?
Right. What are we doing? What's the point? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, getting into just the heart space of the people, because everything's emotional.
Feeling is the secret. It quite literally is what unfolds this reality. To the degree that we feel and believe things, that is inevitably expressed in this world. So if you start from there with any project, whether it's a physical place, a state of consciousness, anything, and you feel it, and that shit happens. Always. Like in my experience, it's something we're doing all the time. That's what the freakiest part about. People will ask me because about this imagination stuff I've been talking about a lot. They'll be like, how do I do it? I'm like, you're doing it all the time. You're just not aware that you are. It's literally, you either imagine this in the past and it's unfolding now, or you're right now imagining something and it's a direct reflection of your state of consciousness. So when we slip into the intuitive heart, the subconscious, the feeling state, and we trust it and we have faith in it, it always comes out. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like when I've just completely surrendered to that and allowed it to be, not always comfortable, but it without fail is what this world is. I view this world very much like an effect. When you change your mindset, when you have the intention of integrity and all of these things, your clients picked up that bat signal and are like, oh, the prospective clients who come to you are like, oh, there's something energy there that I'm sensing now and I want to work with her.
It magnetizes.
Exactly.
For sure.
So like, what's your philosophy when approaching kind of creating a physical space for any project? Like, where do you start when doing that?
So there's so many different information feeds
Yeah.
that need to sort of be considered, but really it's like the primary is getting into the intention of my client, because there's something that they care for so deeply and they're not generally able to language it.
Express it clearly through syntax, yeah.
Or it's even just like energetically, there's a nuance to it. So it's not even maybe something you can language. Yeah. So it's that discovery process. It's just kind of receiving all that information.
And knowing how to process it and then get it out, right? I mean, that's
it's not a conscious, I mean, there's levels of it that are conscious, but it's not a conscious process. and so it's, that first schematic phase of just going through image after image, like thousands of images, until we're pulling together 30 and then
honing in.
And then that starts to be the conversation around what we're making. And it's like, it's cool. It's totally subconscious.
What do you find a lot of clients wanting? What do you find it like the spectrum of intentions are for people who are coming, who you're like energetically, you can pick up on it. And you're like, whoa, this is exactly what I love. Like what's been showing up?
Well, they're really all from the hospitality space.
Yeah.
So they all have a deep desire to be of service and create art and offer it.
Right. Right.
From all their different places, if it's a chef or developer or whatever, but they're all coming from that space.
Yeah. Yeah. There's got to be a lot of nuance though to the individual people and their energy for what they're trying to do. What excites you kind of the most, in terms of someone approaching you with an idea, or if there was like, let's not even say someone who's come to you, but like an imaginary person who'd come to you. What's like your dream kind of energetic person to come and be like, I want to do this?
Oh my gosh. It's hard for me to separate typology of project from just characteristics of being.
What do you like to do most in terms of projects though? Like what
I'm dying to do?
Yes, this is what I want to know. You get it.
Is some like hotel or at least just meditation space, something around hot spring. But I want to do earthwork architecture.
Cool.
Yeah. And so, we do so many hospitality spaces. We're not generally doing as much ground up architecture.
Right.
But I'm ready to do more.
Yeah.
We're just finishing up a house in Oaxaca.
Oh, cool. My sister's in Oaxaca all the time because mezcal. She's like mezcal queen.
Oh.
She's always there.
So mezcal my client, Bricia Lopez, was called out on the New Yorker as the queen of mezcal.
Oh, how interesting. I guarantee she knows my sister Tess. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible she can't. Cool.
They own a restaurant here called Guelaguetza.
Very cool.
And I did it. Yeah, designed a house for her and her brothers and sisters.
Cool. And so you like building. This is what I'm sensing here. You're now having the desire to build from the ground up foundationally, which to me, just when I hear it, just to be clear where my head is at, is this is an expression of what you're doing internally, right? To physically see that played out as a foundational thing that's built up from the ground up. You're expressing naturally what's going on in here now.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's interesting because a lot of our projects, it's taking what's there and kind of holding it, morphing it. Exactly. And also sensitivities, like, we're pretty good at like existing brands that need translated into a more current space. Or
it's interesting hearing you talk about this. It sounds like what you're really adept at is being able to tune into people's energies and intentions and aspirations and then take them in, work with them to tease it out. And like, these are my favorite types of people who, they can help you do some amazing shit that you maybe couldn't have done on your own as easily, but they show you that you actually had everything and they're just facilitating getting the energy out. That's a real skill for people because there's a lot of people out there who don't think they're part, like they hire someone just like you do it. I don't know, but like it is so much more fulfilling for people when they're a part of the process and they realize it's actually them too who's co-creating this. Yeah.
It's all about co-creation.
Yeah. That's cool. That's fucking cool. So where'd you grow up?
Oh, I'll give you the full story.
Yeah, full story, please.
Well, so my family's from Texas for a long time, so I definitely
Where in Texas?
Fort Worth.
Cool.
But when I was little, we lived in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Cool. My Alexis's great grandfather, her grandfather was from Little Rock.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and Texas, Houston afterwards.
Oh,
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I get it.
Arkansas is beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard it's really nice. It's an interesting place too. Yeah, it's like Little Rock in particular, I think, is like very unique in Arkansas. Is that right? Or is it like kind of symbolic of the whole place? What's your take?
Oh, I guess it's less redneck.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was trying to say. In like the, it's like the Austin equivalent. Also in like Texas, like Austin, Texas is like not. That's the only place I've been in Texas.
Okay,
and it's like no one. They're like, this is not what the rest of the state is like. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but Texas didn't used to be all that conservative either. It's just weird right now.
Yeah, it's switched, but it's switching back. I heard. Who knows? Anyway,
it's
you
just
grew up
being
in Texas,
flooded by Californians.
Yeah, that's what happens.
So and you know, it's funny. And in Arkansas, I grew up in our house was like a modern redwood cube in the forest. It was, yeah.
Cool.
My mom was into like antiques and abstract expressionist art.
Cool.
It's beautiful.
Cool.
And I keep thinking about this place that they took me. I must have been like, Charlie Bird, please, we're doing an interview. I keep thinking about this place up in the Ozarks called the Thorncrown Chapel. And when you talk about magic spaces, this is a Faye Jones project. And I'll show you a picture later, but it's this succession of cross timbers that forms like a depth of sacred geometry and then all glass sort of below in the forest.
Where is this?
It's in the Ozarks.
The Ozarks are kind of like weirdly magical, though. I've had people mention them to me who live around them, and they're like, have you been to the Ozarks? I'm like, no, I haven't been, but like people tell me like there's cool shit going on.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's pretty neat.
That's cool.
And
so you grew up in this kind of like magical forest house in Arkansas.
Totally.
Okay, so you grew up there. How do you find yourself in LA though? I'm curious in people's LA transitions at this point.
I came out here for grad school.
Cool. For architecture?
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly. I had just turned 21.
Oh wow, cool. Cool.
I liked LA, wanted to come out.
Where'd you go to undergrad?
Vanderbilt.
Cool. At what age?
16, I guess.
Yeah, my mom and my sister did the same thing. Because you were saying 21 you went to grad
17.
school. It's like I didn't graduate my eventual college until like I was like 26 or some shit. It took a long time. I wasn't in school the whole time. I just like stuff happened.
Gap year.
So yeah, in a way, definitely in more ways than one actually.
Where were you in school?
I started in Boston at Northeastern. Studying psychology, and like within the first 2 months I'm like, this is bullshit, like I hate this, like this is not I wanted to learn about like philosophy and like mind, and it's like the brain. I'm like, fuck this. So I withdrew from there after like a year. Then I enrolled in Berkeley, where I eventually graduated from College of Music. So and that was great. It's just down the street too from Northeastern, so I was like familiar with the area and everything. But I did have a period where I had to withdraw when I got launched into another dimensional reality for 3 months after I took it. Did I tell you about this, about the LSD, where I took it and trip for 3 months? Okay. Basically, while I was at Berkeley at music school, I was taking I was very well versed in psychedelics. I mean, I was taking acid since I'm 15. I would regularly do high doses of mushrooms. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're good.
She's okay.
It's all good. Doesn't bother me. And it won't
cool.
bother people listening at all.
Okay.
I promise you. So I would take like 7 to 10 grams of mushrooms. I knew what the fuck was going on, basically. Like I didn't have hubris about it, but I was well versed in psychedelics. But one time I took like a nominal dose of LSD, like 150 mics, and I just didn't stop tripping for 3 months.
Wow.
3 fucking months straight, through the dreaming state, through waking life. And it was such an extended period of time. This is why this podcast is partially called Synchronicity. It was such an extended period of time that I had enough like wherewithal to like intellectually, empirically, like test objectively, like what the fuck is going on. Like sometimes I was just blissed out and there was weird shit. But then there'd be other times where I'd be like a normal person, like in my head, and be like, what the fuck is going on? This is weird. So I eventually had to withdraw from school because after this very acute kind of like, I was getting way too many downloads. I was like a horny 21-year-old in a music college, like trying to reconcile like deep fucking universal truths. And I couldn't, just got wrapped up, and like my ego started getting involved in a weird way because I was not prepared for what the fuck was going on, and I crashed. So I had to withdraw. And I eventually enrolled a year later, and they let me in a very prestigious program, and I graduated from there. But that experience was not totally dissimilar from what I see a lot of people going through now, which is when it clicks in that what you're imagining and visualizing and feeling and believing actually creates this world. If the distance between what you imagine and what eventually unfolds gets short enough, it freaks you the fuck out the first time. It like can't not, because you think of something and there it is. And it's like, holy shit, if that keeps happening. Yeah.
And I'm amazed at like, first off, that would freak me out. But I'm amazed at like, I had a really, really, really intense experience on DMT and Death Valley.
Yeah.
And and this coincides with actually that exact occurrence of me finding all these new communities.
Hey man, I get it.
And there's a place we like to go to that's an oasis. It's like 60 miles on dirt roads, and you kind of have to know which way to go. And then you arrive at these hot springs in the middle of the desert.
Cool.
And
very cool. Did DMT there?
Yeah.
I just did that for the first time 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Loved it.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It validated everything I knew. Yeah.
So it's interesting because the first time I tried it, it was I probably didn't have very much, but it was just the experience of an entity sort of thing. Like I just felt flooded with love.
Yeah.
And then it was
accurate.
Like, yeah, you get to feel that because that's who you are.
You are it. Yeah, exactly.
So this time in Death Valley, I did set an intention to meet my spirit guides.
Ooh, that'll do it.
And I smoked, and apparently I smoked very, very little, but I was completely transported.
Yeah.
And immediately like everything became 2-dimensional and sort of a diamond pattern. And it was like, I went insane, and it felt like falling out of a skyscraper and hitting pavement. And I was so terrified and so upset that I was like, I'm stuck like this forever.
Right.
I'm ruined.
Right. This is me. I broke my brain, or I'm dead. Or something.
Yeah. Oh my God. But then there was this breakthrough, and I was in this huge, like, glowing dome that was all the colors of sunset.
Totally.
And like transparent. And there was thousands of beings, like presences there, but 3 primaries, and they were like, yeah, like, and I was just coming to like, it just fucking died.
Right.
Like, am I
for
okay?
sure. 100%.
And then they're like, we've been waiting for you.
Yeah. This is what has to happen before you come too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's okay. And I was like flooded with so much gratitude. And then it felt like a transmission. Like I felt dirt under my hands, and I'm like, oh wait, I'm in the desert.
Right. I'm on Earth.
And my dear friend that had manufactured and given me the DMT was there, and so he felt like he was patching me back to Earth, and I was like, oh, interesting. He's one of my spirit guides.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I felt like a real healing from the loss of my mother as a young child.
Yes.
And I was immediately driven to start to create different projects in the world.
It just switched internally. Like the trigger. Yeah, I get it. I think what DMT does, based on my one time smoking changa, and I ripped that shit. I did it 3 times, like Because they're like, you smoke weed, you'll know how to do this. Because it's like the herb-based DMT that you sprinkle on top of the DMT stuff.
Yeah.
And I ripped this thing 3 times. And second hit, everything got fractally, kind of 2-dimensionally. Third hit, leaned back. And my experience was, I was on a beam of light that I was also the beam of light. It was vertically positioned, so it felt like up, like ascension. It was fucking nuts. I knew I was it. I was also riding it. And somehow I didn't really set a specific intention. My friends put on shuffle. Higher Love by Steve Winwood came on. That was my blast off. It was so fucking amazing. And then I asked everything. I said, are all my dreams really coming true? And it was just like, yes. And I was like, holy shit.
Whoa.
I got scared at one point, and I did my Kali thing where I stick out my tongue, go like, kills the fear, lets whatever needs to die. And came back down. It was like a nightclub. It was like purple flashing lights. And I'm pretty sure that is a physical location that I will experience in this life, because it seemed like it had tangible reality. It wasn't like, oh my God. But I think what DMT does, and I also heard before I blasted off, this happened to me on ketamine once, and I don't take a lot of ketamine. I've done it twice. But when I was rubbing my arm hair, it was shimmery. It was like shing, shing. And that's right before I blasted off. And I think what that is when you leave your body, that's the sound it makes right before. Some people experience it like this high-pitched whine or like there's shh. But what DMT seems to do is have you completely drop your body, but you still maintain your sense of self. Maybe not necessarily as Alexis or Noah, but we know we still have that I am consciousness.
Yeah.
And from there, it's just all bets are off. It's infinite worlds, varieties, interactions, cross sections of reality, people in this world cross-secting. It's just, I loved it. I fucking loved it. It was like just one of the most, and I think the same thing started to happen to me. I didn't ask for it, but since then, I've gotten a lot more intuitive messages that in this world certainly feel like not me necessarily. It feels like something, I mean, I know it is me, but it feels like some distinct aspect of consciousness that maybe I'm not familiar with, but it feels like something else, like guides. It's like, what the fuck is this? Now I just have to integrate that into my life in a holistic way, because I think a lot of spirits want to communicate with a lot of people who are alive right now. It's just kind of, and this is a game to me. This isn't as high stakes as like sometimes make it seem, but like, since we're in duality, moving through linear time, I think we're in a position where we can actually help a lot of people here and who don't have bodies, who are maybe like, what the fuck is going on? You know? But it's a game. It's fun. That's cool. How many times have you done DMT? Just
after that, I'm like, I mean, it's like I have some here. I've not touched it. I'm like that. Respect.
Like, I don't want to die on the pavement again. I'd rather not.
Honestly, when it came out of that experience, I was with like 5 friends out there, and I looked up, and everyone's just staring at me with their jaws open. And my one friend's like, we did not know you could make noises like that.
Oh,
apparently I was
shit.
screaming.
Yeah. They're like, oh shit, we broke her.
They're just making sure I was breathing.
Yeah.
And trying not to interrupt the process.
It sounds like you psychically killed yourself.
Yeah.
And that is unnecessary. I mean, we do it all the time, but we don't usually perceive it as acutely as when we get those type of,
It's interesting. I just camped with Zendo Project at Burning Man.
Cool. Very cool.
Do you know these
guys?
guys?
I do. Yeah. I very much do.
So we were with all the Maps guys and
cool.
Android Jones. And
yeah,
so
I'm
I just
staying
did
with my friend.
Samskara. Have you guys been down to that?
To what?
Samskara.
I know what it means, but I don't know the place.
Oh, it's all, it's in the arts district down here, but it's the Android Jones, all of his art, but interactive ways. And there's a film.
Very cool.
It's lovely.
Oh, that's my peeps. I haven't spoken to Android, but someone on my podcast network is like very close with him and had him on. Like,
if you have time.
Yeah, the visionary art stuff is great. I live near. I aesthetically, all of it isn't my favorite, but I live near Cosm, just in New York, or Alex Gray and Allison Gray, and man, they do have people who roll through, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, that's some next level stuff. Maybe I don't hang it in my house, not like my aesthetic, but I'm like, wow, like you guys are capturing something that is clearly people experience and see, and you're able to pull it back and like show people. That's pretty fucking cool. Yeah. So what's kind of your what are you focusing on in terms of bringing into this world since we're on this subject? Like, what would you like to see more of with these spaces you're creating, but also just like around you in general?
I think wisdom is showing up a lot.
Yeah.
I love making joyful space.
Yeah.
But Jill and I don't know if she shared with you the project we've been developing.
Briefly.
And it's creating spaces for the dying.
Yes.
And Jill being a death doula. We're looking it's the craziest thing. No one has ever done it.
So
I mean, like, there's a little bit here and there. There's some models, but it's not something that's been wildly explored. It's all spaces
100%.
for the living,
of course,
around people who are dying.
Ramdas said when I first started working with them, he said, because he was very much into death and dying at that point. I think he thought he was going to die.
There may be some stuff in Varanasi. I wonder.
Who?
In Varanasi.
Varanasi, yeah.
It might be. We should check into that.
Yeah, there you'd probably find some other models, maybe in other countries. But his idea was he wanted when he died to be put in a coffin in like a mall, and it would say "Be dead now," and it would be like these places you walked into to like start learning about death. That was his vision. However, I think what you guys are working on is probably going to be the thing that actually invites people to do it, because to approach death, you kind of got to be ready or willing to do that. From like your clients, and like it's not everyone's going to run towards it, because a lot of people, when they think of death, it's the end for them.
And that's what I think there's the possibility of transforming that relationship.
It has to happen, right?
And creating the opportunity to have an unburdened death and an earthy, awesome, and sublime.
What could be better?
Space. Pilgrimage, totally.
All coming from the dying person.
Yeah.
That's the model I'm trying to just always back to the dying. Because we are all dying, but we death denial, like,
well,
that way.
I mean, what I've opened up to recently, we were talking about a little bit last night. I really do believe every sliver of second of every time we experience, we're constantly dying. I don't mean like we're aging and then we'll physically die. I mean, it is a constant process of destroying our sense of self and rebuilding it up. It just happens so fast when we're awake, we don't catch it. But then you do have those DMT experiences or those weird anxieties that turn into ego death. And that shit is, as best as I can tell intuitively, as close as we actually get to the state of physical death. And to the degree we can strengthen our practice with that, what's cool is when you do that, because you're finding out, like, when you psychically kill yourself and go through that kind of experience you see played out, you become a new person, but you also get more comfortable with the process of letting shit go, which is like pretty much what death is, right? I mean, it's this embracing this change of letting all these conceptions of self, all this physical reality, you're just letting it go. Like it's a piece of clothing you gently take off. But if you get all freaked out and are like, when I take off these pants, I'm going to fucking be obliterated. Like that's not, then you never want to take off your pants, and you never think about taking off your pants, and you're a weirdo walking around with pants all the time. So it's like, it really is something that in multiple ways has to be approached. And I think the idea of a physical space for it where people can learn and just feel the vibe too. Let's be clear. Like that is super needed. Like we all have to deal with this shit. No one's getting out of this life. Yeah.
With some honesty. Yeah.
And integrity. And like, it's critically important.
And I think one of the things that I think I have a pretty grounded connection to the sacred. Yeah. And so the projects that are around this space, I think that's really the gift that I'm here to be giving.
I'm curious to see your chart. Do you know your moon sign? Everyone learn their moon sign. I'm just going to keep yelling at everyone to learn their moon signs.
Okay.
Even if you don't believe in astrology, it's like the most helpful thing. I was telling Jill, like, the reason I encourage people to learn their moon signs more than their sun or their ascendant or even any of their other positionings, which are all great, is the moon is how you feel. It's when you're alone, how you feel and think of yourself. Also, in the age of the divine feminine, rebalancing everything, that's the feminine. That's the subconscious. That's the heart. So when people click into their moon, they're like, oh, this is actually how I feel, not necessarily how you express yourself or how other people perceive you. It's like, I feel like this. I'm curious what your moon sign
Oh,
is.
I'm going to have to go do my chart.
Yeah.
Taurus.
That adds up. That adds up. Yeah, this is fascinating. Well, what do? You also seem like I don't use the word often, but it seems like you're pretty good at selecting your reality. I was going to say manifesting. How have you been? What do you attribute that to? Do you have specific practices, or how do you do it?
Well, I think because I mentioned earlier that my mother died when I was young. She
Yeah.
was sick for a while with a brain tumor.
Oh shit.
And so it was doing my reckoning with divinity when I was like 5. I gave up on God, started praying to the lion and the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe.
Weirdly the
And-
same thing.
Exactly.
Weirdly the same fucking thing.
Totally. And it wasn't working, but I think as a little thing, I was depressed.
Yeah.
And I was so sad. And so I just have always chosen, I'm like, I never want to feel that way again. And I'm choosing joy.
Yeah. As the choice, and as a choice that is actually you're capable of making.
Yeah.
Sometimes people hear that and they're like, that's like, what are you talking about? I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I have anxiety. And it's like, yeah, but like, what if I told you if you've ever felt happiness or not anxiety, you could imagine that state and it would naturally express itself. If you empirically test it, that shit'll work. If you resist it, you'll think that's crazy. But I mean, you're proof. This makes me think of something too. One of the things I use about this imagination stuff for is not just for future selection, but I go back in time, and I've been doing this a lot with childhood memories, a lot. And you go back to a traumatic or shame or just like shit that fucking is there, and maybe just still a little more cleaning up. You go back and you recreate the scene with sensory vividness and the feeling, but you change it. You change it from the higher perspective that we use ourselves as time machines. You now have a perspective that if you could go back to 5-year-old you'd be like, listen, you got this shit. And when you actually have this conversation, the weirdest thing starts to happen to you, like either right then or the next day. You're like, what the fuck? Like, I feel different. Like, what is going on? Like, I'm not running away from this situation or this thing that used to trigger me. I'm not reacting to. It seems to be a game, especially now in Scorpio season with Mercury in retrograde, that a lot of people are doing. And then what I found, to the degree we go back and kind of clear up a lot of that stuff, then it seems to be a lot of ancestral work. It seems to be a lot of like 6-7 generations. Like, people didn't have an opportunity, even LA, to express themselves fully like people do now. I mean, there's fucking weed everywhere. There's like, everyone's like into spiritual stuff. Everyone can have a conversation, even in New York. Like, I was staying at...
It's happening in New York now too?
Oh no, I was at the James. So I was at the James,
So
like a fancy Soho hotel, and the concierge, just a regular dude, probably from like the Bronx, like Puerto Rican dude. I was saying I was on there on Halloween to read tarot, and I was like, it's a weird vibe out there. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like Halloween? I was like, nah, like there's something weird. And I was just like, that's all I was saying. And he goes, yeah, it feels like an ascension. And I'm like, bruh? I'm like, what the fuck did you do? I was like, okay. Yeah, so like there is something that people can palpably pick up on now that's easy to kind of access it as like a dimensional portal. And it seems like, to the degree that people can open up to this, you can actually help people who didn't have as easy enough time recognizing that consciousness creates reality, who were grounded in physical reality so much that they felt that the forces out there were actually shaping them rather than the reality that it's the other way around. That revision stuff, I highly recommend it for anything, because you change the feeling, right? You show the younger version of yourself that joy is a choice that you've made and it's benefited you so much. And then that conversation with the younger you is like, oh shit, I can chill out now. And what's weird is when you start doing this, you realize that the past and future quite literally are just conceptions. And when we heal them and integrate them into the present moment, shit just starts getting way better. Like, that's the only way I could describe it. I highly recommend that for any childhood, any past things.
Lampert does exercises like that too.
Yeah, it's because it works.
Yeah,
it works.
Interesting.
Yeah,
super cool.
It is. It's just an effective thing. So, Yeah, I mean, we could cover so many other things. What were some of the other kind of modalities that shifted you into, I don't know, let's call it a higher perspective or kind of a bird's eye view. I mean, you have birds here. A bird's eye view of the situation of like your life and just life in general. Whereas, I mean, you mentioned DMT, you mentioned that traumatic death experience of your mother when young would certainly influence that. What else kind of led you towards this path?
I think just the moments of exposure to what you might call more hippie state of mind.
Yeah.
And I went to Montessori school when I was a kid, so it was very much like free to be you and me.
Yeah.
And we were watching the Yellow Submarine and
Totally
listening to Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, my kid goes to a Waldorf school. It's like
yay!
Yeah, it's just like
yeah,
these kids, they're having a great time.
That's so rad.
Yeah,
you're a Waldorf dad.
Yeah, I am a Waldorf dad.
My
I guess
guy,
at this point, yeah.
He's a Waldorf dad too. His girls
yeah,
too.
It's Waldorf dads are interesting because like I always considered myself like pretty like do whatever you want, and I notice even at the Waldorf school sometimes I'm like, yeah, but like let's also discipline these kids sometimes. Let's also like make sure that they know sometimes they can't just do whatever they want all the time. But I toe the line. I mean, it's a toddler. Toddlers are fucking insane. It's like they're sociopaths, basically.
Yeah, they totally are.
It's nuts. Like someone just sit there, like he looks like I was FaceTiming with him the other day, and he looked like a villain. Like he was cute and he was adorable and there was no ill will, but he was just like lounging back like an evil villain with his thumb in his mouth. And he's like, yeah, what's good? And I'm like, oh my God, like what are you doing? He's a Taurus too. Yeah, basically. Yeah. That's cool. So you had the freedom to kind of express yourself.
So, and then having that early basis and conversation in that space. And then and it's like, then you're a teenager. And for me, I completely forgot about all that stuff. And then it just showed up later.
Yeah.
In life.
When about?
Probably when I was in California. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll happen. I just noticed it from being here like now 24 hours. I was here a couple years ago for a few days. I mean, this is the City of Angels. Like, that's not named that. Even if it was named that before it was like this, the fact that it is named that literally creates it. And it's very palpable when you get here. And people can get tripped up by that because angels, again, are just a dualistic conception. It's not unity consciousness. You know what I mean? But everyone's an angel. That's another technique that I love using is you use your friend's voice as an angel. So you imagine like if you want something or you want to be something, your friends validating it to you. They say, oh my God, it's so great. You got that. It's so amazing. And you hear it clearly and you just accept it. And then you go through all of the people close in your life and you have them do it the same way. And it's fucking, that shit works.
Very cool.
It's very good. What else? What else do we want to talk about? I just feel like there's one more hidden thing emerging. Let's get to the questions and see if it pops up. I asked 3 quick questions and then one longer one at the end. It's an open-ended. What's your favorite color?
I like all of them.
It's not as uncommon as you would think, but if you had to pick one, and it doesn't have to be fixed, just right now.
I'm sort of in between yellow and blue.
Cool. Very cool.
The other.
Yellow, creative intellect. Blue, intuition. Makes sense. Favorite number?
5.
Interesting. I can tell you I've done like 200 plus of these. 5 probably comes up like the least.
Huh.
Truthfully. I mean, some people pick like weird, bigger numbers, but like usually 1 through 10, but 5 is not that common. Favorite animal?
Oh, birds.
Yeah. Gathered that. Last question. What's a practical tip that's helped you in your life that you could share with people listening?
The work doesn't speak for itself.
Elaborate though. I'm just curious to hear that.
Yeah, and I don't know if this. It's like you've got to be able to like people, and it's like also when they're looking at images, if you show them an image of something, they don't know what you're showing them.
Right.
Or if you show them work you've done, they don't. You have to walk them through specifically every little thing about why that's relevant to them
and
why
narrative too, right?
Yeah, that was a big thing for me to learn.
That is at the heart of every successful artist and creative, they understand that process and they don't use it as like a formula. They just naturally understand that the narrative related to the piece of what you're doing. And like sometimes you can embed things, as you know, into the project that maybe people can tease out and figure it out. But if you do walk people through like the intention and the nature and the energy of the thing, it's so much more powerful because they see it as like, at least for people who are creating holistic spaces, right? Like, that's badass. Like a lot of people throw shit out there because it's an incomplete project in their mind, so it doesn't resonate with people. But when people kind of get into a space and like, wow, the fuck is this? And like, you can also show them that there's like a whole conception behind it and there was an intention. That's pretty cool. Alexis, this has been awesome.
Yay.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything else you want people to know about you? Where can people find you? I'll have links and all of that too. But
awesome. Yeah, we're at preeninc.com, like preen, like a bird.
I just, okay, now.
So the birds have an oil gland at the back of their, like by their tail, and they draw that through their feathers. And so that keeps them conditioned and ready for flight. It's that, yeah.
We got to do another one where we just talk about birds and the symbology. I'm not even joking. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to that episode. I almost forgot what it was called. They're called episodes, Noah. That, you've done 250 of them or so. Go check out Alexis at preeninc.com. There are links on this episode page, on the podcast page, all the places. She's cool as fuck, as you can tell. LA, I'm coming for you. This is going to be great. We're going to have an amazing time. If you are interested in a reading, let's do an in-person one. It'll be really fun. So that's going on. Fun times ahead. Happy imagining. Live your best fucking life, guys. Just treat yourself for real. This is the season for treating yourself. Sag season popping up on Sunday. Ooh-wee. It's going to be good times. All right, that's it. I will see you next week.